The Pittsburgh Steelers have finally ended months of uncertainty surrounding the quarterback position, officially bringing back Aaron Rodgers on another one-year contract for the 2026 NFL season. After an offseason filled with speculation about retirement, contract negotiations, organizational frustration, and endless debate regarding Pittsburgh's long-term direction, Rodgers ultimately decided to return for one more year, signing a deal reportedly worth up to $25 million with incentives included. The move gives the Steelers much-needed stability heading into training camp, but at the same time, it has sparked major debate across the football world regarding whether Pittsburgh just made a smart short-term decision or fell directly into a dangerous long-term trap. Because while Rodgers remains one of the most accomplished quarterbacks in NFL history, there is growing disagreement about how much elite football he truly has left at 42 years old. Few players in league history possess a resume comparable to Rodgers. A four-time NFL MVP, Super Bowl champion, future Hall of Famer, and one of the most naturally gifted passers football has ever seen, Rodgers spent the majority of his legendary career with the Green Bay Packers, establishing himself as one of the defining quarterbacks of his generation. His arm talent, football intelligence, pocket awareness, and ability to make impossible throws helped transform him into a superstar for well over a decade in Green Bay. But the second half of Rodgers' career has looked dramatically different from the first. After years of dominance with the Packers, Rodgers' relationship with Green Bay gradually deteriorated before the organization ultimately traded him to the New York Jets in one of the biggest blockbuster deals in recent NFL history. The Jets believed Rodgers would instantly transform the franchise into a legitimate Super Bowl contender, but instead the situation quickly collapsed into disaster. Rodgers suffered a devastating Achilles injury just 4 snaps into the 2023 season, immediately destroying the excitement surrounding his arrival in New York. Although he eventually returned for the 2024 season, the overall 2-year experiment with the Jets became widely viewed as disappointing considering the expectations attached to the move. Questions surrounding Rodgers' mobility, durability, consistency, and long-term future only intensified as he entered his 40s. That uncertainty followed him directly into Pittsburgh. When Rodgers originally signed with the Steelers ahead of the 2025 season, many analysts viewed the move as Pittsburgh attempting to stabilize the quarterback position temporarily while searching for a more permanent long-term solution. To Rodgers' credit, he did manage to keep the Steelers competitive throughout the season. Pittsburgh finished with 10 wins, captured the AFC North title, and finally returned to the playoffs behind Rodgers' veteran leadership and efficient offensive management. Statistically, Rodgers remained solid. During the 2025 season, he completed 65.7% of his passes for 3,322 yards, 24 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. Those numbers certainly suggested he could still function effectively within an NFL offense despite concerns about age-related decline. Rodgers continued showing elite mental processing, strong pre-snap recognition, and the ability to control games situationally in ways few quarterbacks ever master. But despite the respectable numbers and regular season success, the ending of Pittsburgh's season created enormous doubt regarding how far Rodgers can still carry a team when the stakes become highest. The Steelers' playoff run ended in brutal fashion with a humiliating 30-6 home loss against the Houston Texans during the wild-card round. Rodgers struggled badly throughout the game, throwing for only 146 yards while failing to produce a single touchdown pass and tossing an interception. The offense looked overwhelmed, slow, and completely unable to handle Houston's defensive pressure. For many critics, that playoff performance confirmed fears that Rodgers is no longer capable of elevating a team deep into postseason competition. Among the loudest voices criticizing Pittsburgh's decision was sports commentator Skip Bayless, who argued that the Steelers essentially walked directly back into the same problem they should have avoided entirely. Bayless harshly claimed Rodgers already looked washed during his final season in Green Bay and suggested the Steelers ignored obvious warning signs following the disastrous playoff collapse against Houston. And honestly, many around the league understand why those criticisms exist. Rodgers' playoff performance against Houston looked alarmingly similar to his final postseason appearance with Green Bay years earlier. In that game, Rodgers also failed to throw a touchdown while struggling offensively in a disappointing playoff defeat. For a quarterback historically judged by championship expectations, repeated postseason failures naturally create major questions about whether regular season competence is enough anymore. The criticism becomes even more intense when considering Rodgers reportedly received a significant raise despite the disappointing playoff ending. According to reports, Rodgers' new deal could pay him roughly $10 million more annually than what he previously earned. That financial commitment raised eyebrows immediately because Pittsburgh is essentially rewarding an aging quarterback after one of the worst playoff losses in recent franchise memory. Critics argue that paying premium money to a 42-year-old quarterback coming off an ugly postseason collapse feels less like smart roster building and more like organizational desperation. Still, there is another side to the argument. The Steelers realistically had very few alternative paths available this offseason. Pittsburgh entered the 2026 NFL Draft without a realistic opportunity to select one of the elite quarterback prospects near the top of the board. The organization also did not appear interested in fully rebuilding or punting on the season entirely. With limited options available in free agency and no clear franchise quarterback immediately accessible through the draft, returning to Rodgers may have represented the safest available route to maintaining competitiveness. That reality likely played a major role in Pittsburgh's decision-making process. The Steelers believe Rodgers still gives them their best chance to remain relevant in the AFC playoff picture while simultaneously buying time to continue evaluating younger quarterbacks and future draft classes. Even if Rodgers no longer performs at MVP level consistently, he still provides veteran stability, leadership, and experience at a position where uncertainty can completely destroy seasons. There is also the undeniable connection between Rodgers and Pittsburgh's new head coach, Mike McCarthy. Following the Steelers' disastrous playoff exit against Houston, longtime head coach Mike Tomlin surprisingly stepped down after more than 2 decades leading the franchise. The decision marked the end of one of the most stable coaching eras in NFL history and immediately shifted attention toward who would replace him. Pittsburgh ultimately hired McCarthy, instantly creating speculation that a Rodgers reunion was inevitable. The history between Rodgers and McCarthy is extensive. Together in Green Bay, the pair won 107 games including playoff contests, making them one of the most successful quarterback-head coach duos of the Super Bowl era. Their familiarity with each other's offensive philosophies, communication styles, and football approaches likely made the reunion extremely appealing for both sides. From Pittsburgh's perspective, the continuity matters tremendously. McCarthy already understands how to structure offenses around Rodgers' strengths. Rodgers already understands McCarthy's terminology, system, and expectations. That familiarity should help the Steelers avoid some of the growing pains that often occur when quarterbacks and coaching staffs are learning each other from scratch. And importantly, Pittsburgh has not stood still around Rodgers offensively. The organization spent the offseason attempting to improve the supporting cast significantly by adding former Indianapolis Colts wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr., running back Rico Dowdle, rookie wide receiver Jeremy Bernard, and first-round offensive tackle Max Ihenekor. The Steelers clearly understand that if Rodgers is going to succeed at this stage of his career, the roster around him must provide significantly more support than it did during stretches of last season. The offensive line improvements may prove especially important. One of the biggest issues during Pittsburgh's playoff collapse against Houston was the inability to consistently protect Rodgers against aggressive defensive pressure. At 42 years old, Rodgers no longer escapes pressure the same way he once did earlier in his career. Keeping him upright, comfortable, and operating from clean pockets becomes absolutely essential if Pittsburgh wants the offense functioning efficiently throughout the season. Still, even with roster improvements, major concerns remain. The AFC continues loaded with elite young quarterbacks and explosive offenses capable of overwhelming opponents quickly. Teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals, and Houston Texans all possess quarterbacks entering or currently sitting inside their athletic primes. Rodgers, meanwhile, is attempting to extend his career into territory very few quarterbacks ever successfully reach. That is why the Steelers' decision feels so risky to many observers. Pittsburgh may remain competitive enough to win games and challenge for another playoff appearance with Rodgers under center. But the larger question is whether merely remaining competitive is enough anymore. The Steelers have now spent multiple seasons avoiding a complete rebuild while simultaneously failing to establish a definitive long-term quarterback solution. Rodgers can stabilize the offense temporarily, but he does not eliminate the larger organizational uncertainty surrounding the future. And that may ultimately be the biggest concern of all. If Rodgers plays reasonably well again, Pittsburgh could easily find itself stuck in the exact same situation next offseason, competitive enough to avoid drafting near the top of the board, but not dominant enough to truly compete for a championship. That middle ground is one of the most dangerous places an NFL franchise can live because it delays long-term solutions without fully delivering short-term rewards. Which is exactly why many critics believe the Steelers may have fallen directly into the Aaron Rodgers trap once again. Comment if you think Aaron Rodgers' official return to the Steelers was the best option and decision. Thanks for watching and see you soon.